What up, guys? We're back. We're here. I've been summoned because there has been a very bad movie that was released and I recently saw. I am, of course, referring to Return to Silent Hill, which is the third Silent Hill movie that's directed by the same guy who did the first Silent Hill movie, Christoph Gans. Here are my thoughts on it. They're a little unorganized. I had some feelings about the movie. I think a lot of people did. I would say those feelings have not been positive. In fact, they've been quite negative. I believe right now it's running at like 1.9 on Letterboxd, 15 on the RT Rotten Tomatoes thing. So it's not looking great for the film. In fairness, the January release date didn't seem very promising. For those of you who don't know, it's like January tends to be the time where the studios are like, fuck you, like here's our shit. Here's our shit that we didn't want to release last year and we just kind of stalled and now we're releasing here. So there you go. Silent Hill was something that I really got into like my junior year of college. Like I really got into the music of it. I remember seeing on Spotify the soundtrack for Silent Hill 2, which I have the vinyl actually for 2 and 3 right there. That's 2, that's 3. And I really got into those albums, both 2 and 3, 2 and then eventually 3. I like Silent Hill 4 as well. The soundtrack is great. I ended up playing Silent Hill 2 on the PS2, ended up playing Silent Hill 3 on the PS2, and I have Silent Hill 4, The Room, and I'm still getting through that right now as we record this video. So Silent Hill, has meant a lot to me. I really like the aesthetic. I think a lot of people like the aesthetic. It's a great atmospheric game series. I haven't played Silent Hill F. I haven't played the remake of Silent Hill 2, but the series has gotten some love lately, and Konami released their Silent Hill transmission, which was kind of like a Nintendo Direct, I guess, for Silent Hill, and it promised a lot of good stuff like Silent Hill F and a few other games that were kind of forgettable. And merch, of course. I know everyone wants merch and wants to buy merch because fucking how could you like something if you haven't paid extra money to sort of represent your preference for it? You know what I'm saying? But anyways, let's talk about the movie, right? So the movie is an hour and 45 minutes. I believe that's roughly 20 minutes less in runtime than the 2005 movie. And, I gotta say, I really felt like it was very rushed. It was very rushed, and it really could have used that 20 minutes because, this film, Return to Silent Hill, was very much more a direct adaptation of Silent Hill 2. And I would say that's to its detriment. The fidelity it has to the original game is a little too close. It seemed really interested in showing us cutscenes and references to that second game rather than being a little more inventive and leaning towards kind of the more simple thematic elements of the series, like, I don't know, just the atmosphere, kind of just feeling uneasy in the fog. And I really felt that in the first movie. I actually really like the first movie, but in this iteration of it, I found it frenetic and rushed, and it didn't make any goddamn sense, frankly. It didn't make any goddamn sense. I'm not saying the first one made a ton of sense, the first movie, but there was a kind of poetry and slowness to the presentation in the first movie. You have Sean Bean, and he's missing his wife, and, there's something about, a female protagonist in Silent Hill that I think is really works for that type of world. And that's partly why I really like Silent Hill 3, and I was really surprised at how much I liked it, because you follow Heather Mason. It's she's the daughter of the protagonist of the first game, which I still haven't played, but it's also $250, not really willing to sort of spend that much money on a PS1 game, but maybe I will. Who cares? But yeah, I mean, in terms of this movie, Return to Silent Hill, I saw a lot of funny reviews kind of trashing it, like Return Your Ticket to Silent Hill, which I thought was funny. And there was another one that I'll throw up here that was maybe a little more, a little edgier. But anyways, people have been saying some funny things about it. I'm kind of adding to this dog pile. I'm not really going to I'm not going to scream in this video. I'm not really going to be the guy who's like at the vanguard. I'm not going to be the QAnon shaman of the hatred for this movie, but you have my support. People who are dunking on this, because I'm dunking on it in my own way. I'm throwing out what I thought was unsuccessful about the movie, what I thought was a misfire about the movie, and I've seen kind of some I'm getting a little sidetracked from the plot of the movie. I will come back to that, but just a little tangent. I have seen some specific hate towards the director, Christoph Gans, and I would kind of hold back on that, because until we know kind of, and I'm not saying we're going to get the straightforward answer, because it's industry shit. I'm sure these people are going to sort of spin it in one way or another in terms of who's to blame for why this movie is shitty, right? But I think Christoph Gans, he directed that first movie. It was pretty good, I think. I think there are some really faithful elements to it. And here it seemed like, at least he tried to have some control of the circus before it seemingly got away from him, because if you look at that first movie, it didn't really concern itself with being a one-to-one adaptation of the game. And I'm not sure if this was his idea to adapt the second one outright. I found it unsuccessful, but who knows, because there have been examples of video game adaptations where the company really wants this character represented or this moment to happen. A really good example is like the 90s Street Fighter movie, where basically I don't know if it was a representative of Capcom or whatever. They were like, we need to have like Zangief in this scene and Dhalsim in this scene and all this stuff, which is misguided, I think, because when a movie is really fan servicey in its adaptation, for me as a viewer, I start to kind of feel like the filmmaker is jangling his keys in front of me and sort of like, hey, like, remember Pyramid Head? Remember, I'm being a fake fan, but the character who has the knife, who's like suicidal and has that really kind of tragic backstory of being when she was young, and obviously there's an artful way to weave those elements into the movie, but I did not feel like that was done very well. It was very clunky. It was very like, okay, here's the entrance to Silent Hill. Here's the shot of James touching his face in the bathroom. Here's the graveyard, where he meets the character. I'll throw their name up. I really have forgotten that character. And I did, and the movie, in fairness, the movie did not help me remember that character's name. It was very like, okay, here's this person you've seen from the game. Like, who cares, right? So that was a little, I didn't really feel like it was done in an artful way. To get a little more back into the movie, I would say that there are some elements that are forgivable about the film. I thought the production design was good. I thought they really created some great environments that I frankly feel they really rushed through them. Like there was a lot of James running through these interesting environments that felt very faithful to the game. And again, like Silent Hill is such an atmospheric game, I'm confused as to why you would go through all the effort with a creative team to create, Brookhaven Hospital, the apartment that James goes into in the first part of the game, the first building you enter in the second game, and to sort of rush through that, Another part of this film that I really struggled with and did not appreciate was the flashing back to James' past. So in Return to Silent Hill, the approach that they've taken is that James has broken up with Mary. In the game, they're wed, and James knows that Mary has died, and so he receives this letter calling him back to Silent Hill, and he takes that on kind of erroneously, kind of knowing that he doesn't know who sent that. He doesn't know if it's, really what the source of that is. And that mystery, I think, is a great hook. And instead, what they do in the movie is James has broken up with Mary. He is drinking now. In the film, he's a painter, which I actually thought that was a good bit of adaptation. Because if you think, I'll get to why. But he enters Silent Hill, and it's not like the first movie where Silent Hill is a place that kind of traps the characters in there. And while Sean Bean is traveling in the old version of, or the real version of Silent Hill, I think it's Rose De Silva, that character, is in the hellish sort of underworld version, which I thought was really effective. And in this, it's just Silent Hill's a place, it's abandoned, no one likes it, it's shitty, and you don't want, like, no one wants to be there. So I found that very, very deflating. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't this weird sort of dream he would get pulled into, similar to the first movie, where they're two separate realities. It was just one kind of broken down town, which I found a lot less dramatic or interesting. It felt very straightforward and kind of pointless. Yeah, so he runs around and there's some like evil bugs and some of the monsters that are from the game, which I didn't find particularly scary or real. They didn't really feel real. And I don't know. I think what they pulled from the game was really bizarre, or it was the wrong elements of the game. Like in the game, one of the first weapons you get is like a pipe, and like James is holding a pipe, and kind of trying to attack these monsters constantly, and I just felt like that was a really clunky, like pointless thing to include about the game. Because when I think of Silent Hill, I'm not like, oh, I love Silent Hill because of the weapon that's a pipe. You know what I'm saying? I like Silent Hill because it feels like a dream. It feels like the protagonist, James, is like it feels like he's sleepwalking, kind of, and I also think there's a kind of malaise to James in the game because he's middle-aged, because he's kind of, he's not on the upswing. Like there's a stagnancy that you can kind of feel in his character, where he's sort of maybe, I don't know, he's lost something, he seems incomplete. And I Jeremy Irvin, if that's how you say his name, he plays the lead in this, and he plays James, and I thought he had a really hard job to do because they dressed him up kind of to fail. I thought his outfit in the movie was very, very unlikable. I thought it was crazy that he had like necklaces that like Johnny Depp would wear. I thought his hair was really distracting, and it looked like he was wearing a wig the whole time, and he might have been. I don't know. And I mean, it was a rough performance to watch for 96 minutes. It was really, he had a lot of being scared that he had to do, and he did it, but never did I really feel like I was watching someone who was in a place that he had been before, right? And what I was getting at earlier is that, he does he used to live in Silent Hill with Mary when they were dating, and when he gets the letter in the movie, he is still he's still like Mary's still alive, he thinks, and they broke up. They weren't wed, they broke up, and I thought not having the information, I already said this, but not having the information that his wife was dead in the beginning, like it happened in the game, and instead it's a reveal, like, you know, in the last 15 minutes. I thought that was so pointless, because who is going to this movie? It's the Silent Hill fans, right? They know the story. Like, is there really? I mean, I'm sure there are some people going to this movie blind, right? Who are like, oh, you know, this looks like a scary movie, and I'll go and maybe I'll get disappointed, like me. But by and large, it's for the Silent Hill fans, and we know. So just treat us like we know, right? and don't, you know, don't change it in the wrong ways, which I felt like it did. So maybe I'm sounding like a broken record, but you know, there were some really unsuccessful changes to this. I thought the actress, to talk a little bit more about the performances in this, I thought the actress who was Mary / Maria, right? Because they, you know, it's like the game where they look really similar, blah, blah, blah. You know, I thought she did an okay job. I thought she was better as Maria than she was as Mary, frankly, because, you know, Mary is kind of a sketch in the game. She's just like, oh, it's my wife, you know, I was his wife. You know, like all you really know in the game is that Mary is James' wife and she's sick. You know, so I don't really think that performance could even be good, I guess, because there's nothing. There's so little to work with, right? And so in terms of what she has to do in this movie, I thought she did, I'm assuming her best. I thought she did a pretty good job. It's not a compelling character or a compelling performance, but you can tell that the performer behind these characters was giving it a go. So, you know, I respect it, even if it was, you know, a very boring, very torturous movie to watch. So anyways, that's what I can offer, I guess. Yeah, you know, I'll also talk about the supporting characters who are in the game and were represented in some way in this movie. You know, there's Eddie, the kind of the more portly character who's responsible for James saying, like, how can you eat pizza at a time like this, or whatever the line is.
Monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
In the film, he's not dressed in like in the game, it's like a blue striped shirt. It's like this backwards blue cap, and it seems like he's kind of older than he should be in terms of his dress. So he's maybe kind of a man-child type of guy. And I thought it was just really disappointing how in the film, he's just kind of like a kind of overweight, kind of like a basement dwelling guy. He's just in like a t-shirt, you know, which just is crazy to me. It's just crazy to me that, like, okay, we're going to make this movie for whatever the budget was. I think $24 million. It could have been $34 million. And it's like, okay, well, what do we do with this character who sort of in the game, I think he symbolizes kind of a gluttony or a kind of stagnancy. That's just what he represents in the game, right? Clearly, he's eating pizza, he's throwing up. You find him in a bowling alley in the game, and in this movie, he's just in the apartment building, and he follows James around for a little bit. For some reason, he's there in the initial Pyramid Head encounter that is a very iconic moment in the game, and I saw a great review that was sort of commenting how they kind of totally whiffed that moment. That was a total epic fail of sort of capturing the mystery and the kind of shock of that initial moment of seeing Pyramid Head. What happens in the game is, you know, you see Pyramid Head behind these iron bars and he's just completely still, you know, and regardless of how your character reacts, he's just still the whole time. And in the movie, there's this kind of like, you know, this kind of sequence of showing the sword, his like big cleaver he has, you know, dragging through the tile of the apartment hallway, and, you know, oh my God, here it comes, this big iconic kind of part of the franchise, you know, and yeah, whoever wrote that review, it's like you're right on the money in terms of that moment, the contrast between the movie and the game being such a microcosm of how the adaptation of the movie completely drops the ball with what the game was so successful at. Evie Templeton, who plays Laura, I thought did a great job. The scenes with her and Jeremy Irvin as James were one of the stronger parts of the movie. There's something about Jeremy Irvin's performance where it seems like, you can tell a lot of this was shot with a green screen. I'm not sure how real some of these environments were, besides maybe the apartment that looked real to me. I could be wrong, whatever. And maybe there's something about him acting across a kid that was like, oh, this is like a real, like this is, like this is a real scene I can actually, that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Because his scenes with Laura, or Evie Templeton, are like a guy in a dangerous place seeing a girl, a young girl who's vulnerable, who could, that one of these monsters could grab her, what have you, and I felt like his performance, like it's like turned on a little bit, like his performance sort of like switched into a higher caliber, where I'm like, why is this, why are you acting good in this scene? And then every other scene in the movie, you're kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't really know. Like, so who knows, right? Who knows how they shot this? Who knows how much of this was shot in a way where it's like, okay, Jeremy, look at the green tennis ball and freak out, right? Obviously insert a reference to Ian McKellen shooting the Hobbit movies where he's super depressed and the only human being on set. I'll insert a clip of that here. Wow. What a revelation. And which I think is that the name of the second movie? I'll look that up. Is it called Silent Hill Revelation HD or 3D or something? That's a digression. That movie's really bad. Well, let's get this out of the way. If we had to rank the Silent Hill movies, I would say 2005 number 1. This I would say is number 2. I would say it is number 2, and then third would be, I think, the Silent Hill Revelation, if that is what it's called. That movie's pretty bad too. Oh, James being a painter in real life, like in his regular life before he goes into Silent Hill, I actually think makes a lot of sense, because if you think of Silent Hill as James' psyche externalized, right? It makes sense that he would kind of have a painter's mind and sort of manifest these very artistic kind of anatomical creatures. You know what I'm saying? So, I actually really liked that. I really liked that part of that change they made. So I guess it's not all bad. To get a little bit more into James' character in this, they gave him a therapist and they really kind of play into the mental health aspect of Silent Hill, in terms of the connection of his psyche and misremembering things and being in denial a little bit, which I think there's a way to do that in a movie and have it be compelling. I don't think it's this movie didn't do that well, but I think a version of that could be good for an adaptation. I just thought it was very, very clunky, and it kind of reeked of the kind of early 2000s kind of Memento, like guy who's washed up and has a dark past, and then he remembers something crazy, or he's in, his memory is so hazy, like a Memento or a Jason Bourne or a Mr. Robot, like these male characters who are like, oh, I don't, my past,
You don't remember where you've been or what you've just done.
No, I can't make new memories.
And not that there's anything wrong with that character. It's just in this case, when it's so tied to mental health, like a character's mental health, and him seeing a therapist, and at one point he wakes up in a hospital bed and he's like restrained, and I don't know, it just it felt very hollow to me, and it really felt like the movie was punching above its weight, where it's like, okay, dude, like you can't even adapt the source material right. Why are you then making it like very much about kind of mental health? I don't know. Maybe I'm not the only one that bristled. I don't think I'm the only one that bristled at that, but that really jumped out to me as like, fuck, like there's no way you're going to do this right, and they didn't. So There you go. Finally, when we get to the end of the movie, there is kind of a flashback to spoilers for the game. If you don't want to, whatever. I mean, we're, deep into the video now. So, anyways, James remembers that he killed Mary. He remembers that she, she kind of accepted it, I guess. And, I thought it was really, really tough to watch in the movie because James, they put this terribly fake, just terribly fake looking beard on Jeremy Irvin for the scene. So it's like, if, I mean, like, it's literally the most emotional part of the story, right? I'm not saying it's the most and the movie, right? The most emotional part of the movie. And for him to be wearing this terrible beard, terrible fake beard during it, I thought, it literally makes you think that the people making the movie were like, let's make sure there's no fucking way this is good. You know what I'm saying? Because the moment around that scene, it's kind of parallel cutting between James remembering he killed Mary to him on the rooftop of the Lakeview Hotel and seeing Mary's bed like hover. And I thought that was one of the most effective moments of the movie. But the beard, the beard he wears in the flashback completely deflates, what really could have been a kind of a saving grace of this movie. And instead it was just one more of those scenes that's like, well, I guess this is technically in the game, but you've done something here that is such a bizarre interpretation of it, and not even in an avant-garde way. It's just a weird, like, it just felt careless, and I guess that's really a word that would characterize a lot of this movie. I would call it careless. I would call the interpretation of James' design careless. It's totally one of those movies where it is so much is crammed into it, but for some reason it felt like 3 hours. It felt like it totally dragged. And I think that's because there was not a linear kind of flow to these moments. It was just like, oh, he's in Silent Hill. This is happening. There's a homeless guy. Oh, the homeless guy's dead. Oh, he has to get the radio. Oh, he has to, meet Maria. Oh, we have to flash back to a terrible scene with him and Mary. And it really was spread so thin, and I'm not sure why the script was so just terribly spread out. It really felt like a first draft. And yeah, I don't know if we'll be seeing another Silent Hill movie anytime soon. I really hope we don't. I really hope that this is and I'm gonna sound kind of stuck up here, but I hope this is a lesson, to Konami, to other companies or game companies or film studios who are looking to adapt these video games. What I've seen in the conversation about this movie is that there was kind of this feeling that video game adaptations had broken open a little bit in some ways, and that it wasn't this kind of like surefire miss type of thing. Like there have been some good video game adaptations, or better than the early 2000s, right? I guess it's like a low bar that the recent adaptations have been kind of hitting, like your Fallout show, like your Mario movie, which is not perfect, but it's it's serviceable, right? And this really felt like a regression, and which is crazy when you think that Silent Hill is a really kind of a different game. It's not very action oriented. It's very, very slow and atmospheric, and it kind of lends itself to film, I would think, in terms of creating a tense movie. So where does that leave us? One thing I forgot to mention that I'll just throw in here right now is there is a kind of spoilers for the movie. I kind of spoiled the whole thing already, but I'll go into it anyways. I'll say that anyways. There's a subplot here with Mary being part of a cult that her dad runs that basically would slowly feed her poison and then the people of Silent Hill would like devour her or something, or like eat her while she's in this like underground kind of cult layer. And there's this terrible scene where like James is in this like sewer corridor thing, and he's looking through these iron bars, and watching this happen, he's like, married, and it's like super overacted, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense. So I'm just mentioning that because I have no idea what that was about. Maybe it was a nod to the cult stuff that happens in the third game, and I believe the first. Again, I do have some blind spots in the Silent Hill world. I haven't played one. The first game I haven't finished. The fourth game, blah blah blah. But I something inside of me is telling me that I even if I did play the first game, it's not like I would see that scene and be like, bam, got it. They rocked it. It felt very flat and pointless. I'll just throw this in, kind of a lightning round of little details that I disagreed with in the movie from what I can remember. James smokes weed in his Mustang at the start of the film, which immediately was like, oh, this is a kind of a red flag. Like, why would he do that? Nothing wrong with. I mean, there is something wrong with smoking pot and driving a car really fast, right? Obviously, but it was like, okay, I mean, this isn't make or break. Mind you, this is like the first minute of the movie, and then I watched this in a full theater, and then he like swerves out of this oncoming semi, swerves away from it, and collides with Mary's luggage, because Mary's at a bus stop that she has this like powder blue luggage that James hits with his car, and there was this like digital explosion of clothes that looked really bad. And I think from that moment, like at that moment, I think the entire theater, myself, and I felt the entire theater kind of being like, okay. Right? Like, this is going to be bad. like it's just like sort of a collective kind of slump, from the whole theater, seeing that explosion of clothes, which was laughable. All those scenes where James meets Mary or hangs out with Mary or goes on a date with Mary, which is kind of interspersed with his exploration of Silent Hill, felt terrible. I mean, it is it is wild to me. It's wild to me that you could direct a movie at this level and have such an inability to place actors in a scene. So yeah, maybe that was not one tiny detail, but it kind of was. That explosion of clothes was like, got it. Okay, this is not going to be the best movie ever. There is a scene before this where James is kicked out of a bar, and it's kind of first person, and he like looks in the mirror of the bar while he's getting like thrown out, and we see him, we don't see the camera, but it really felt like the movie was just trying to like flex, but it was a really hollow flex because it looked like a body, like a digital double of James that we were seeing in the mirror. So it was like, why even do the shot? Why shoot it that way? No one is expecting you to do this cool mirror shot where it's the POV of the character, but we don't see the camera. No one cares. No one is seeing the movie because you put that shot in it. So why do a shitty version of it if you can't do the good version? Blows my mind. Yeah, so this will be kind of a messier video. I don't really think I'll edit too much of it because this is just kind of my thoughts, throwing it out there. If you haven't guessed already, this is not really something I would recommend to people. I think there are some great films that came out last year that I still need to get to in terms of the recent Oscar nominations and kind of seeing those before the ceremony in March. And I think that would be a much better use of one's time in terms of their movie going and their film life, rather than seeing Return to Silent Hill. All right. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Obviously, shouts out to the crew who worked on this movie, because they got to work, right? And it seemed like probably a fun project to shoot. Not a fun project to watch, but I hope at least somebody had fun in the sort of life cycle of this movie. Anyways, yeah, I hope they really don't make a movie about Silent Hill 3, but who knows? Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks so much for watching again. And if you want to subscribe, do it. If you don't, that's fine. I don't really post too much. This was just so bad, it kind of coaxed me, got me out of my shell, got me in the chair, to talk about it. So there you go. All right, bye.